Hello TBR. This is a video about database, how you can gather results in a database from GTO Plus. And I'm currently working on multiple formations where I solved the 184 flops subset that you can find on the PO site website, and I also posted those subset those flops that sample, in fact, that flop sample in the forum. So you if you search a bit, you will be able to find it. And mainly what I wanted to do with that results gathering, I wanted to see where Big Green was deviating from averages. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that, and I'm going to show you the work I am currently doing on a formation where I'm looking at the strategy for the out of position player as the aggressor pre-flop in a single raise spot. So as you can see, I solved, if you look at the database here, I solved the 184 trees, and I opened it in this this mode here. When you click on this button just here, display results in graph, and I classified them by expected value. So basically what you can do is just classify them either by equity, expected value, the bet sizes you got on flop, or the check, and those are frequency, obviously. And once they are classified, and I suggest you to classify them by expected value, which is a really good measure in poker, you can go here, click on this thing here, and just scroll to the bottom, in fact. Click Shift, select them all, and hit Control C. And then you can just paste those in an Excel sheet here. And so what I did is I pasted all of them in the first table, in fact, that you see here. I pasted them there. And I put a number just on the left side of them, just to represent the exact same number that you're gonna find in the GTO Plus file. So for example, if GTO Plus crashes on you like this, well, you just have to wait. But we can see through it. Okay, he's back. If we look at flop classified by expected value, flop number 14, for example, which is ace of spades, queen of spades, jack of diamonds. If I go back in my sheet, my Excel sheet here, and I look at flop number 14, I got ace of spade, queen of spade, jack of diamond. And you have to enter those manually, because when you copy paste the flops data from the GTO Plus window, it won't give you a number like this. So I found that it was really important to just give them the exact number. If I click on this flop, I just want to, and I want to look at the result of this one here. I just want to know where to look in the GTO Plus file, which flop is it, which flop it is, in fact. So this is why I pasted the number. I just entered them manually on the left side. So the first thing I did is this, and also I classified them by a special acronym that I use while playing, which is basically cards from 2 to 5 are considered low cards, 6 to 9 medium, and 10 plus, so 10 to aces, are considered high cards. And this is the way I classified flops. So and I always start by the lowest card to the highest card. So if you get a flop of 2-3-4, for example, this is a low board. If you got 2-8 ace, it's a low mid high board. And basically, it gives me a way to remember efficiently which boards are more favorable. So for example, if while doing my study, I realized that every medium boards are bad for my range, I don't have necessarily to remember which one exactly. Like, is it the 7-6-9, for example, or is it the 8-8-9? Or I just know that a medium, all medium cards are bad for my range, and it's a quicker way to just analyze a board rapidly while playing online. So I identify them, all of them, on this column here in that table, and I just gave them the type just to represent this acronym here. And the first thing I did is if you go to the bottom of the that table, I did the average for the equity, the expected value, the frequency with the 1/3 on the flop, and the frequency with the check. And basically, whenever a board has an equity below or an expected value below the average, or both, I give them a red color like this. So for example, a 7 of spades, 6 of spades, 5 of diamond is a board where my equity is below the average and my expected value is below the average. And this is something you'll see a lot while playing with GTO Plus, that don't rush, don't think too hard about this. When there is a straight boards, usually it's a good idea, especially if you're out of position, to tone down your aggression, even in position. In fact, straight boards where a straight is possible, you'll find out that those are boards where frequency drops a lot. And this is kind of logic, in fact, if you think about it. So whenever the expected value or the equity was below the average, I colored them in red, and when they are equal or better, I just colored them in blue. So this gives me a better, visually it gives me a quick answer if I want to know if a board is a range advantage board or a range disadvantage board. When there is one of those two categories here, either equity or expected value, that are red and the other is blue, I consider the board as a range neutral one. So the first thing I did is color them, all of them, the 184 flops. Then after that, I took all the blue, in fact, all the blue you see here. I took those boards, and I pasted them in a new table that I called range advantage tree. At first, I had more flops in this table, and I explain you why I shrinked this table a bit. Once I pasted those range advantage board, I did the same process again. So I did the average for equity, expected value, and whenever a board was below the average, I just pasted it in the range neutral tree. So basically what it's gonna do is that the best boards for us in the range neutral table should be in fact the worst of the best, if you want, of the range advantage tree. This is just the fringe under the best, the very best boards for our range. And I did the same I took all the red ones here and I pasted them in a table I called range disadvantage tree. And I did the same process. Every flops that were over the average, I copy pasted them in the range neutral tree here table. So it leaves me with two table, range advantage, three tables in fact, but range advantage tree here table, the range disadvantage tree table here. And I shrink them a bit because if I leave the fringe just that I talked about, that was a bit below the average, it gives me a lot more boards to analyze and gather results. So I just started to I decided to look at the very, very best boards for a start. So once I did this, I just looked at which type of boards are now present in the range advantage tree table, the range disadvantage tree table, and the range neutral tree. I'm going to show the results I got here. First off, from the 184 flops sample, you got 5 boards that are low, 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 14 low, low, mid, 19 low, low, high, 21 low, mid, mid, 45 low, mid, high, which is the most common boards you'll see. And by the way, the 104 flop sample is supposed to represent the whole game of poker. So in poker, you're gonna see more often than not a low, mid, high boards. After that, we got 25 low, high, high, 3 mid, 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 which are the least common boards. And then we got 16 mid, mid, high, 25 mid, high, high, and 11 high, high, high. And just below this here is the percentage they represent for the whole game. So as I said, low, mid, high will be 1 out of 4. So it's almost 25% in fact. And you're gonna see that board 25% of the time. Then I just looked at which ones are range advantage, range disadvantage, and range neutral boards. So for example, if we look at the very, very worst boards for our range, for my range in fact, here, are the low, mid, high. So basically, whenever there is a low cards and 2 mid cards, those are bad boards for me. There is, in the range advantage table, there isn't a low, mid, high, low, mid, mid, sorry, boards, 0%. And 95.24% of the low, mid, mid boards are in the range disadvantage tables, as you can see here. And we got only 4.76 low, mid, mid boards that are in the range neutral. And my guess is that those boards, those 4.76, should be at the top of the range neutral, because they probably comes from the fringe I removed from the maybe not, in fact, maybe they are the best of the worst, in fact, probably, yeah. Anyway, it shows you the percentage they represent by categories here. So the best boards for us obviously are the high, high, high boards, and 90.91% of all those high, high, high boards are in the range advantage table. And after that, I just did a quick ranking here, where which are the best, in fact, in terms of percentages, where they are. So for example, the low, mid, high, which are there, are the most common boards that you'll see. Then after that, the most common will be the mid, high, high boards. And those are here. They are 25%. And those mid, high, high, luckily for us, are good for our range. The low, high, high also, which there is 25 also, are kind of a mixed, if you want. 52% of the low, high, high boards are in the range advantage table, and 48% are in the range neutral. And after that, we got the low, mid, mid, which are bad boards for us, etc. So this is a way you can look, you can gather the results from a database, and you can look at boards that way. In fact, once I done this, I wanted to know at which frequency Big Green was firing different type of hands. So for example, at which frequency is firing quads or flushes or sets across all the possible boards with my range. So I did what I call the ends frequency on range advantage boards. So I only took the boards that I considered as range advantage boards, those that were in the range advantage table. And I just one by one looked at the quads, the full house. I pasted the data for the flush, etc. So, and once I did all the possible hands type, if you want, on flop, I just gathered the frequency. So, for example, on range advantage flop out of position, you get the frequency. Big green is gonna bet the 1/3 with every types of hand. For example, he's gonna with the flush. He's gonna bet them 53.82% of the time, checking them 46.18% of the time. With sets, he's gonna bet them with the 1/3 at 60.62, check them at 39.32. So basically, the greens here are the ones that he's gonna fire over the average, which are here, and the white are those that he's gonna fire under the average. So we could say, for example, that checking out of position with sets and flushes 50% of the time with flushes, 50% of the time with flushes, 40% of the time with sets, help us to protect our middle pair and weak pair and no maiden, obviously. Because as you can see, in terms of frequency, they are bet under the average. And it's the same for middle pair and weak pair. And from middle pair and weak pair, we are kind of expecting this because they are hands that will be hard to bring to showdown out of position. And they can now be logically protected by sets and flush, obviously, flush and straight flush, obviously, but surprisingly, as you can see, quads, for example, are fired over the average, in fact. And my guess is that this is such a powerful hand, and it is so rare that you probably you shouldn't slow play, in fact, with quads at all, because also most likely when there's 3 cards on the boards of the same rank, or 2 cards of the same rank, especially 3 cards, in fact, the in-position player is a lot more incentivized to call with all his pocket pairs, for example, and over cards. And you're gonna get a ton of calls from those when you hold quads, and basically it's almost impossible for the in-position player to beat you at showdown. It will be very rare, obviously. So you just want to extract big blinds from the guy that you're facing. But anyway, this is what I did, and I rounded them here on this table here. So it gave me a feel for the frequencies he was using across all boards, and I was surprised to see that he was checking that much with the flushes, for example, and as you can see, he's firing over the average with flush draw, open-ended straight draw, gut shots, and 2-card backdoor flush draw, which is 70-30 here, as you can see. And once I did this, I did 2 other things, in fact. I looked at the turn first, and I'm going to come back for our range on the flop, because after watching the Porter video, I came back in the sheet to do some more gathering from flops results, and I'm going to share it with you, those one. So after that, I just took every every turn reports on every flops. And those are what you see here. And basically when I bet and villain calls, we go to the turn. I extracted every turn results. I pasted them here. So you have the equity, the expected value, the frequency with the overbet, the frequency with the 2/3, the frequency with the 1/3, and the frequency with the check here. And the cards missing on the left column here are simply the cards present on the flop. So that's why they are not in the turn reports, because they can't be there since they are on the flop. And I did the average again for all those categories. And I did every turn reports for every flops. So basically I got 184 turn reports. Once I did all of those, I just did an aggregated table for every possible turns. So you're gonna have every possible turns here: T of spades, T of heart, T of diamonds, T of club, Queen of spade, Queen of etc. until 2 of club. And I did the average for all those 184 turn reports. So for example, across all runouts, the equity for the 10 of spades with my range is 52.16. The expected value is 10.96. The frequency with the overbet on the turn on that T of spade will be 13.30, etc. And those that are red are just those that are over the average, which is here. And after that, I just shrinked that table again to just the T, the Q, the key, the K, the Jack, Ace, etc. without suits. They are just an average of every possible T, for example. So as you can see, out of position across all runouts as the preflop aggressor, the best turn cards should be kings, aces, tens, queens, jack, 3, and 2. And everything in the middle, more higher than 3 but lower than jack, should be a turn that is kind of favoring your opponent. But this is across all runout. But I did the same process, but on the range advantage boards. The exact same process. I just extracted turn reports, but just on those range advantage boards. I did the same aggregated table here, the same shrinked table here, and by expected value, those are the best turn cards on range advantage boards. So aces is the best, king, 2, 3, queen, 4, and 6. So this is something you can do with the data gathering. And after I watched the Porter video, I just wanted to see my range on all range advantage boards, in fact. So I just pasted every possible hands I have in my range on all those 48 range advantage boards. So you can see that all those combos are there. And what I did is just once I just pasted all of them, I did the same process again. I just sum up the equity average, expected value, the frequency with the 1/3, and the check. So this is the average across all range advantage boards. And then I did every end separately. So this is what you're gonna see here. So for example, if we take pocket twos, and we go just at the bottom here of all those pocket twos. Pocket twos across all range advantage boards has a 29.94 equity on average. And the average for all my range is 52.96. So you can see that pocket twos are really under the average. The average expected value for pocket twos is 3.48, when the average for my whole range is 6.49. And so you can see that this is a hand unless you spike a set, for example, or straight, etc. You can spike a straight on the flop, but if you don't turn a straight with pocket twos, this is a hand that will be really tough to show a profit with. And this is the same with pocket threes here, as you can see. Expected value is below the average. Pocket four are worse than pocket threes and pocket twos. This is the same for pocket five. And pocket six is kind of in the same boat than all those previous one. And basically you're going to see that it's the expected value will begin to go up with pocket nines. In fact, we are almost at average here. We have with pocket nines, our equity is better than the average. Our expected value is closer, in fact. And once we shift to pocket tens, for example, now our equity is over the average of the range. Our expected value is over the average of the expected value of the range. And it's just the same for the jacks, the queens, the kings, and the aces, obviously. And as you can see, aces are really, it's not a big surprise, obviously, but just to show some numbers, we got an expected value of 19.29 with the pocket aces, where the average of the range is 6.49. And my plan is to do all the other hands in my range also. So it gives you a better idea of the playability of a hand, for example. And this is what Porter was showing in his video. And I did what he did also just for the pocket twos to see if when you just look at expected value, for example, because what you see in red here are just combos that are below the average of all the same combos. For example, the average expected value for pocket twos, if we look at the bottom here, is 3.48. So everything that is under 3.48 is in red. And I did the formula that Porter was using. So he just took the equity, multiplied it by the size of the pot on the flop, and this gave him the what he called the equity share. And he did the EV differences with which is the expected value, in fact, that you got in GTO Plus minus the equity share, the suggested equity share. And whenever you had a positive results, it means that the end is winning more than his suggested equity share, if you want. So it means that the hands have a very good playability, if you want. And whenever it is in the negative sides, this is because the end is tough to bring to showdown, in fact. And if you look here, everything that is in white is over expected average, and they show a positive results here. And as soon as I hit the red here, we got in the minus here. There is some hands, as you can see, 0.50 that show a little profit, but they are under the expected value average, but there aren't so many, in fact. So the expected measure is the expected value measure is a good one, in fact, I think. So this is kind of what you can do with the results you gather with GTO Plus, and I can tell you that what I did here is a long process, obviously. It may discourage some people to do this, but I learned a ton doing this. And you can always go back to the sheet, because like I showed earlier when I did the hens type, for example, if we look at let's just say we look at flush draw, for example, the table here, the flush draw table, and we just scroll down to the bottom of the table to look at the average in terms of frequency, for example. Well, I got a lot of flush draw. Okay. So in terms of frequency, Big Green is firing 71.09 with the 1/3 on the flop, and it's checking 28.91. So let's just say we look at individual hands. Let's say we look at this one here, ace of spades, eight of spades, which is fired really under the average here. It is almost checked 100%, not 100%, but 82% of the time. So we look at this end here. It's on the flop number 57. So we could just open the GTO file, in fact. Go to flop number 57. Load it up and look at ace eight of spades, in fact. And we can see that we got a top pair, for example, and a redraw to the nut flush, in fact. So this is a hand that has 83.05% equity on the flop. This is such a strong hand, in fact, that can't really be outdrawn often on the turn. That it is probably a good idea to take it with your checking range, in fact, to protect your checking range. And this is most likely what's happening here, I guess. My guess is this. But this is how you can use the data. In fact, just look at where the frequency are really, where Big Green is really deviating, in fact, and look at the formation, the specific formation with the flop, and try to understand why Big Green is doing this. And that's it. This is, I think, this is a really powerful way to explore your strategy by gathering results, in fact. And I'm looking forward to discover some new things with you guys.